Okay, once again, welcome everyone to this latest edition of our PPSR webinars. I'm your host, Paul Mead, aka PPSR Paul here at CreditorWatch. And as you can see, I've got 15 years of experience in the finance industry and 7 years working directly on PPSR. Just a couple of piece of information before the webinar commences. There is the ability for you to ask questions during the webinar, so please feel free to submit those and I'll try my best to get to them at the end of the webinar itself if we still have time. The session will be about 30 minutes. As I said, I hope to get some time to add some questions in. Really, I hope what you get out of today is some useful information on the renewal process around PPSR, but also get a good look at our PPSR website or portal, and also how it interacts with both CreditorWatch as a portal as well, and Apply Easy, which is our online application form. So the agenda for today, what I really want to cover off is some more detail around the renewals process for your existing registrations, and also look at some common errors that come up with registrations themselves. As I mentioned, I will run through PPSR logic and the integration with Apply Easy and CreditorWatch. And then, as I said, if we have quick time at the end, I'll jump on a couple of questions for you. So just a bit of information about CreditorWatch. We're Australia's leading commercial credit bureau with over 50,000 customers. As most of you would know, if you're customers of CreditorWatch, you'll be using our credit reporting and monitoring tools. We also have a Debtor Logic Plus, which is our trade payment program. Bankruptcy Plus is also a great program of ours. And we have Apply Easy, which is our online credit application and decisioning solution. And, of course, PPSR Logic. Just before we jump into some of the detail around PPSR, just wanted to ask a quick poll question for those of you listening. Do you actually know the expiry dates of your registration? So I'll just launch that now. Please feel free to jump in and answer. Okay, so it's pretty evenly split, but on the whole, there's about 56% of you that don't know the expiry dates of your PPS registrations. That's useful for me, and I guess what I'd like to take out of that is that you may see PPSR logic as some benefit to you, as we do show that information on the system. I want to touch on now the four top errors or common errors with registrations, and these can be fatal to the validity of your registration itself. So the top one there is, of course, the failing to correctly register serialised equipment. Again, this is really important because most of the times when you're dealing with equipment and particular assets, they're of significant value. The second most common error is failing to correctly elect to have a PIMSI or purchase money security interest against your registration. Again, this is important if you are financing particular assets, equipment finance, the like. You can lose out on actually having that piece of equipment returned to you in the event of in an insolvency event. Another error is electing control when control is not possible. This is quite a murky point of the PPSR and can cause some issues. And as we can see, it is one of the top four errors when registering. And then, of course, I've seen this quite a bit in my experience, is failing to correctly identify the customer when selecting your grantor information. So again, the common error is registering by ABN instead of using the ACN for a company, but also using ABN for a sole trader rather than their given name, family name, and date of birth. Just jumping back a sec, again, of course, once you do start with one of these errors, it's quite common that you'll jump in and make that error in every successive registration that you do. So some of the benefits of PPSR Logic is, of course, our bulk registration process, and our process differs slightly to some of the other providers in the market and to PPSR itself in the way they offer that process. I'll run through that as well for you. The big piece, of course, is renewal reminders, and again, that's why I asked that question around whether or not you renew of when your registration's expired. With our reminder and alerts service, you're likely to never miss a renewal, as you not only get prompted with an email at the start of the week, but you also have colour-coded registrations that are due to expire in the coming week as well. Our registration process, our management process around registrations, again, it's unique to the market. We give you that ability to manage your registrations directly from the portal and from your dashboard within PPSR Logic, so that process is a lot more straightforward as a service. I guess as well, CreditorWatch does pride itself on making services like PPSR affordable for companies. A lot of customers I've spoken to in the past have also mentioned that the cost is prohibitive and the time involved in actually registering can be quite prohibitive to them. So what we've tried to do with our service is make it as cost efficient and time efficient as possible. And again, touching on the usability of the system, you can be assured that the compliance and accuracy around your registrations and renewing correctly and easily can be done with as much ease as possible. So PPSR Logic itself is a very easy to use interface. If you've seen any of the webinars in the past, you'll see that it is quite a straightforward layout. Again, one of our differentiators in the market is that we do import all of your existing registrations from PPSR itself, and they're easy to access when you first sign up. The process of registering, again, we offer the different ways of accessing it through Apply Easy or CreditorWatch, and it can be done as quickly as one click to complete a registration. The amending process for registrations and managing, again, it's quite straightforward. I've touched on our alerts and how they can help you avoid having registrations expire without your knowledge. Discharge process, again, is really straightforward, and of course all of those options save you time and make it cost effective for you. So I will now just jump into a demonstration again of PPSR Logic and looking at the links and integration with CreditorWatch and Apply Easy. I'll certainly focus in this instance on the renewal process and how that'll be a lot easier with our system, but also again running through the system as a whole. So as many of you will have seen in the past, this is your dashboard to PPSR Logic. At the top here, and I guess as a new customer coming into PPSR Logic, we can either import your secured party group using your secured party group number and the access code. And as a one-step process, we will import all of your existing registrations into the portal, and they'll be situated all on the one page. Once that SPG is imported, we then can work with you to set up some templates for your ongoing registrations. I've touched on this before in some of our webinars, but on the whole, there are certainly for wholesalers, distributors, and the like. Often you're registering a PIMSI over your stock. You might be registering an all-PAP over outstanding accounts and the like. With our service, by creating that template, it saves you a lot of time and avoids that potential error with the registrations. Creating a registration from a template is very straightforward. You can do it either as a single process or as a bulk process. And by clicking on Create Registration, all of your information is pre-completed. Obviously, your description may be different to that. The preset date is set depending on what duration you have with your template. All you actually have to do with your registration is select who you're actually registering against, select your identifier, and then go ahead and pre-complete that. As you can see here, I've selected the CreditorWatch ACN, and we advise that and provide you a real-time status of their registration status with ASIC. Once you've completed all of that, you can go ahead and click Create. That'll process the registration. As per the standard process for PPSR, you'll receive your verification statement, but importantly, the registration information will populate into the field here as well. So you can immediately make amendments to your registration, or if you've made a critical error or fatal error with the registration, you can discharge with 2 clicks as well. There's no limit to the number of templates you can have within the system. So again, depending on what you're actually looking to register against, you can choose to have as many templates as you like, or you can have the one template to register against. Looking at the registrations themselves, as I mentioned, when we import your secured party group, every registration that you've ever done against that secured party group will be imported. The information of the registration itself, by clicking on the registration number, you can view more detail on the registration itself, including who the grantor is you've registered against, and details around the particular registration. You can choose to amend the registration from here, extend the end time, discharge the registration. And importantly, if you have had legal advice in the past and you can confirm that your registration information is correct, you can create a template using your existing registration. So again, it makes that process a lot more straightforward. One thing I didn't touch on with the templates previously is our bulk registration process. So by clicking on bulk create registrations, we actually make the process for creating that registration a lot more straightforward than, say, if you were to do it with PPSR directly. With our system, you can actually just copy in a list of your ACNs and ABNs. If you're able to extract that out of your CRM or ERP, we can directly link that into the bulk registration list. Of course, the exception is when you're dealing with individuals. You do have to register, again, if you're dealing with sole traders, do register their full name and date of birth. And it's quite easy for you to download our template to enter that information and then upload it once you've completed it and click Create. Again, depending on how many registrations you're completing within that bulk file, the file itself should be processed within a matter of minutes. And again, that information will populate into the list of registrations here. The other optional integrations that we have, as I touched on before, if you're a customer of CreditorWatch, you can create registrations directly from the portal itself just by selecting the entity that you wish to register against. And then the right-hand side here, if you're happy with this company information, you can click Create PPSR Registration. Select the relevant template that you wish to register against and click Register. We've also now added in the ability to have additional grantors listed against that registration. So a classic example is a lot of companies out there, when registering against trusts, they like to register the ABN of the trust, but also if there's a corporate trustee of that trust, register the ACN of the corporate trustee. So you can certainly do that with that information here. Once you've completed that, you can go ahead and click Register, and again, it'll process the registration as per it would if you were doing it directly within PPSR logic. The other integration we have is Apply Easy. If you're not currently using Apply Easy, it's our online application form that we can provide completely customised for yourselves, and it will allow you to free up time around your application process for you dealing with customers, and make some instant credit decisions based on those applications. It also ensures that missed data out of customer applications or incorrect data those issues can be removed, as we validate a lot of that information on the spot. Looking at a potential example of how PPSR logic, the integration would work, this would be your inbox for any applications you've received from customers. And it's quite straightforward to actually approve and then create a registration. You select the action that you wish to do for that particular application, click Approve. You can input a credit limit that would be approved. If you have a unique account ID at that stage, you can input that as well. and then click Approve. You can choose to send an email to the applicant advising they've been approved. And then last of all, you can create your PPS registration directly from here. So again, you would select the relevant template that you wish to register against. We'll confirm all of the information around that registration. If you want to enter in a unique giving notice identifier, you can do so at this stage. Also, if you want to change your description of the template, you can do so at this stage. And then you can submit the registration directly from there. So again, it makes that process of registering directly from the application. And certainly if you're in an industry where applications may come in and goods may go out the door same day or in a very short turnaround, the Apply Easy process does make a lot more easy for you to register with. Jumping back into PPSR logic, as I mentioned before, and touching on the renewal process, and certainly clients that aren't aware of when their registrations are due to expire, the way the registrations themselves have been set out are prioritised in what's due to expire next or first. So this is our demo site, for example, but if you had anything expiring within the next week, it would be colour-coded in red. You'd also receive an email prompt at the start of that week telling you to take some action on that particular registration, and would get you to jump into the system itself and renew. So now I'll just jump into our second poll question. And that is, do you have a process in place to manage your renewals? I'll give you some time now to complete that. Okay, I'll just close that off. And not surprisingly, 80% of you currently don't have a process in place to manage your renewals as such. For those of you who don't have a renewal process in place, I'd be happy to speak to you and provide you some guidance and assistance around what you should actually be doing with your renewals, what to look out for, and ways in which we can help you with those renewals. Certainly some of the common errors around, I guess, those initial registrations that were done in that transitional period, the identifiers that you registered against, whether you selected a PIMSI or not, and even something as simple as whether or not you've got the right ABN and whether that entity is actually still registered or deregistered and the like, is something I'd be happy to help you out with. As we've done with a lot of the PPSR webinars in the past, there are a couple of case studies that I've included here for you to download and have a look through. These are customers that are using PPSR logic. And certainly the feedback we've had to date from users is that it's been a very user-friendly system and does make that management and onboarding process of customers quite straightforward. So I've come to the conclusion of the webinar itself. I can see we haven't had any questions for anyone to date, but what I would say is if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact us directly. Our email address is admin@creditorwatch.com.au, or certainly if you have my details, please feel free to get in contact with me. I'll leave the webinar open for a little while, just in case you do have any questions, and I'll certainly stay online to answer those as they come through. Thanks very much. So we have had a question around downloading the case studies. These slides will be available on our webpage within the next 48 hours. If you are unable to access the slides themselves and the link to those case studies, I'm more than happy to email them directly to you. Another question we've had is the importance of the description on a registration, the wording, etc. The wording around your collateral description is quite important. It really depends on what collateral you're actually looking to protect. The general rule when registering is to make your description of your goods narrow enough that you can easily identify them, but not too narrow that you actually miss out in a situation where a liquidator is appointed to a company in administration, and when doing a stock take, they overlook your particular goods or can't identify your goods. At the same token, you don't want to be too general in your description so that it's not easy to identify your goods. We can provide you with some guidance on your description, and happy to get in touch with you directly on that as well. We've had another question around what if a company has an ABN but not an ACN. The beauty of our system is that we will actually, if you type in an ABN, when creating a registration, we'll validate that ABN for you on the spot, and we'll be able to tell you if that company has an ACN. If they do have an ACN, I'd strongly recommend using the ACN as the identifier in which you register against. There's been another question around getting a copy of the presentation itself. As I mentioned before, this will be available on our website in the next 48 hours, along with a recording of the information I've conveyed to you. If you're unable to access it in any way, please feel free to get in touch with me directly, and I can share that with you as well. So another question we've had is, how do you arrange for a customer to remove their PPSR registration against your company? Really, the only circumstance in which a customer would remove their PPSR registration is if their security interest against you has finalised, or they no longer have a security interest. If they have a valid security interest in place and the registration is correct, then that PPSR registration should stay in place against your company. Really, there's not any other circumstance where it would be removed. Just finally, we have had a couple of queries around pricing for the service. If you're a CreditorWatch customer, the service is complimentary to your access. The importing of SPGs and importing of registrations is also complimentary, and happy to provide you with detail around the cost per registration, amendment and discharge as well. But I'll get in contact with each of you directly around that. So that actually finalises the webinar for today. As I said, if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to get in touch with us at admin@creditorwatch.com.au. Thank you again for your time today.